It's another crazy day in the world of Magic the Gathering. We've got a Lord of the Rings leak. We've got a problem with Lord of the Rings as well. On top of that, there's the insane mega ban frenzy freakout that's been going on in the Magic community that we definitely have to talk about as well.
Magic.
I am a wizard!
History.
I'm an old wizard!
The Magic Historian.
My bones hurt. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends. I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for another ridiculous installment of Mega Magic News. Now, I was away on my honeymoon and I just got back, and there were a ton of things that happened while I was gone. Leaks, this insane ban frenzy. So we are going to do a mega news roundup, and then tonight we're going to do a live stream over on my Hatcher YouTube channel where we talk about all this insanity and the trip that I won on as well. So let's start out talking about the simplest thing that we have here, which is Lord of the Rings Amazon bundle delay. So essentially, if you've ordered a Lord of the Rings bundle through Amazon, you're looking at a few extra week delay. It's unsure whether this is across the board for everybody, but there are a ton of reports. I don't know if this is another situation where we had before where Wizards had to delay bundles because they said, oops, we printed them wrong, what's on the back isn't accurate, and they actually had to go and slap the stickers. And we're actually seeing people getting those bundles now going, yo, what's this sticker? And there's pictures going, why is this jammed on the back of my box? And it's just so that Wizards is actually meeting their legal requirements and not putting out products that don't have the correct statements on them. So that is a bit of an annoyance, obviously, for anybody who's excited about those bundles, but you can always cancel your order with Amazon and pick it up elsewhere, like in LGS, for example, right? So not the biggest deal. Another minor note in terms of Lord of the Rings is it has been confirmed that the battle cards that we have seen shaking things up in Aftermath are not really going to, not March of the Machine regular, not March of the Machine Aftermath. Man, it's all twisted, and I just got back from my honeymoon, right? So my brain puts March of the Machine and Aftermath together. But the battles are specifically from March of the Machine. We will not be seeing any of these battles in Lord of the Rings, which I suppose it does feel kind of weird. On one hand, if you've read the Lord of the Rings books, you know that they're not really defined by battle. It's not really about epic confrontations, but there are some really epic confrontations that are part of the story. So the question becomes, how are they going to illustrate those? Now, when it comes to battles, it is a new mechanic. It is a new card type, right? So they're probably trying to play it a little bit safe in that regard. And up until now, what we usually see in terms of encapsulating like a bigger story or a battle would be sagas. So Lord of the Rings could easily use sagas to cover some of those big climactic battles. So that is an interesting note. Another little interesting notice, there's a brand new site out there that is dedicated to Magic the Gathering flavor. Now, basically, when you go to the site, it will show you the artwork and the flavor text for a card, and that's it. And you can randomize it, have you show particular ones, or you can search based on terms. Now, I, for one, love this because when you take a Magic card and you remove all the gameplay elements, the power and toughness, the mechanics, and you just have the artwork and the flavor text, you can see what the story behind the card's supposed to be from a non-gameplay standpoint. And I very much enjoy that. And it feels like something that should have already existed before now because it's such an obviously good concept. I went over to that website and I found that even just regular comments, there are cards that you will disregard because they're complete trash. Who cares about this 4/4 vanilla for 6 mana? I'ma summon an ox up in the battle. Hoopity goop, I put my ox in front. Oh, your dragon ate it. You know what I mean? So there's a bunch of cards that because they suck, you toss them to the side. But the flavor text and the artwork can actually be really awesome. So when you strip those off and look at them separately, you can have a good time with it. So I'm going to leave a link down in the comment section if you want to go and check that website out. And actually, I might use that on a live stream sometime because it's a lot of fun. So, before we talk about the leaked cards, I want to talk about the ban frenzy because I barely got to see any of this. On my honeymoon, I went into like tune out mode. It's like, okay, forget Magic, forget all the craziness, and just have a good time with your beautiful lady. And I successfully did that. So I knew on the surface that somehow there had been a ban announcement leak. Now, normally we don't get like a full-on leak where we get to know the cards in advance. What happens usually is we just get a little inkling of, hey, they're going to have a surprise ban announcement, right? And normally how this is done is people who are super obsessed with Magic the Gathering, and I mean, I know I'm obsessed. I'm the Magic historian, but we're talking people who are hyper obsessed. They go and scrape Wizards' website all the time and they're like, yo, what kind of even website addresses do you have going on? So they find out, yo, there is a website address that says there's going to be an announcement on the 28th or the 31st or the 17th, whatever it is. But that's usually all of the heads up we get. But not this time. This time we actually got the full article spoiled in advance, and it was a huge list of cards. And you start to go down the list and you're like, okay, basically what's happened is Wizards of the Coast has just said, hey, we're changing our standard rotation to 3 years. And when people ask them, yo, what's the banning strategy going to be? They were all like, hey, we got a good banning strategy, and I just kind of haven't told you about it yet, but don't worry, rest assured, we're going to roll it out, and it's going to be amazing. So the lack of any kind of answers obviously leaves a lot of speculation in the air, and it seems like Wizards, with this announcement, is coming down hard. Now, this announcement was set to release on the 31st, but this was spoiled about, I think it was maybe the first day of my honeymoon. So about 4 or 5 days ago, this ban announcement came out saying, okay, in standard, the following cards are getting banned. Wedding Announcement, Wandering Emperor, Invoke Despair, Fable the Mirror Breaker, Rafine Scheming Seer, Atraxa Grand Unifier, Reckoner Bank Buster, and Plaza of Heroes. Now, when you go through that list, you go, okay, you know what? There's an argument to be made for that. And the announcement also said that they had been monitoring Sheoldred and they were going to keep tabs on her, but she was going to stay in the format. So this announcement had paragraphs arguing for each of these particular bans. Here's why we're doing this, here's why we're doing this, here's why we're doing this. Now, when I went down the list, initially, I was like, no. And then I got to Atraxa and I'm like, wait a minute. Atraxa Grand Unifier, she's a mythic from Phyrexia, All Will Be One. This set has just recently reprinted, and my brain just kind of went, I highly doubt it. You know, like Wizards of the Coast making these kind of shifts based on what's going on. They never really want to ban mythics that they can yank a bunch of money for. I mean, obviously, Fable of the Mirror Breaker is a busted nonsense card. Invoke Despair is crazy times as well. These cards clearly say, yeah, you know what, I can see Kamigawa's lifespan was already running out anyways, and Wizards is breathing more life into the format. But this 3-year thing, let's be real, it's just to shift more product. They got all those commander decks, they're making all this stuff, and they're like, yo, it's not selling fast enough. What do we do? Well, it's like, just give them longer to buy it. So that's ultimately what's going on underneath this shift. So this announcement comes out, people start going crazy, right? They're like, yes, I'm so happy about these bans. People start making market moves. People start dumping these cards. People run on Arena and they start basically going, okay, I'm going to make every card on this list because if they get banned, I get wild cards back on Arena. But here's the thing. It was a hoax. It was fake. And honestly, all the signs were there, right? I was not around from the time it was announced to the time where the person who made it up came up and said, yo, it's fake. And also, just so we're clear, Wizards of the Coast came out and specifically said on live stream that that leaked list is fake. So this list is fake. There were a few signs in there. I will give the person who made it credit for putting in the time to sit there and pick out a bunch of, I mean, it's cherry picking targets in a lot of cases, just going and seeing what people are griping about and going, well, what will people believe, right? Hoaxes tend to work best when you pick something people already believe. That's why when I do my April Fool's jokes, I tend to just, hey, is everyone talking about how Wizards of the Coast is about to get sold? Well, that's what we'll talk about. That's what we'll make the April Fools. So same kind of concept. We already know that things are changing up up big time in the way they do bans. It's the perfect opportunity for somebody to walk in and pull some shenanigans. So Wizards of the Coast comes out and confirms, no, this is not the real deal. But people have already made moves based on this, right? People on Arena, which, I mean, it's just some wild cards, expensive cards, whatever. But then people in real life as well. There are people buying and selling cards based on this fake ban announcement. The person who made it came out and is like, well, here's the reason that I did it, guys. I did it to gauge the reaction of the community and to provoke a response from what, come on, bro. You did it for attention. We all love, hey, look at me. I know I love attention too, right? But it's totally just you saw an opportunity to run amok and you did. Now, some pointers for anybody who's going to try and do this in the future. You might want to put things in alphabetical order. You might want to also, when you have a list of the items that are banned here, you might want to stay with that sequence as you go through it. So when you're familiar with Wizards of the Coast's normal cadence and you see something like this, you're like, you're not getting me with this, bro. You're not fooling me. But it did ultimately create a huge hubbub, and interestingly enough, I'm wondering how it's going to affect the actual ban announcement. If people looked at this and went, oh, all these things are being banned, great, and then Wizards comes in with a really light touch, like how heavy are they going to go, right? This fake announcement didn't mention Fable, but are they really going to let Fable go for like a whole nother year? Things are wild over at Wizards. Like, we're going to look at some of this Lord of the Rings stuff, but before we do, I just want to take a moment to say that I find it very unfortunate that Wizards of the Coast is putting in way more effort to respect other IPs as opposed to its own. So when we saw the Warhammer decks that they made, the cards were very true to Warhammer. They felt like the people they were supposed to be, and they really stuck with the same thing, it looks like, for Doctor Who as well, where it's like when they're moving outside their own IP, they're putting in the time, the money, and the effort, but in their own IP, they don't want to be bothered to write the story. They don't want to be bothered to balance anything. They just want easy money, and it's super frustrating. So let's talk about the leaked cards from Lord of the Rings. We're going to take a look first of all at the Elven Queen Galadriel. So this card is 4 mana for a 4/5 elf noble. Man, times have changed. You get so much for your mana now. Back in the day, 4/5 for 4 mana would have to have some kind of downside, like give one of your opponent's creatures unblockable until end of turn. That's not even an exaggeration. But nowadays, you get 4 mana, 4/5, Will of the Council. So bringing in some voting. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if another elf entered the battlefield under your control this turn, starting with you, each player votes for Dominion or Guidance. If Dominion gets more votes, the ring tempts you. Then you put a +1/+1 counter on your ring bearer. If Guidance gets more votes, or the vote is tied, draw a card. This feels like a pretty powerful vote ability. Either you're getting to draw every time, or you are just ramping your ring bearer straight to the moon, on top of a 4/5 body for 4. It's absolutely wild. Now, unfortunately, because of the nature of the leak, again, the images that we get for this aren't the greatest, so it's hard to, with the reflections and everything, to really pick out what's going on in detail with the artwork for her. So let's turn to Sauron with his big old torch ball head. This thing is crazy. So this costs 8 mana. It's a 9/9 Avatar horror, and I gotta say, that big fat 9/9 feels real good. Also, this ability, when you cast this spell, amass orcs 5. So, up until now, amass has just been for zombies, but it looks like you're going to be able to amass different creature types with it. So in this case, when you cast this spell, you create an arm of basically a 5/5 orc. Then you mill 5 cards and return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It has trample, and whenever a commander an opponent controls dies, the ring tempts you. It is a little bit weird flavor-wise to have the ring tempt Sauron because it's his creation and it wouldn't really tempt him, right? It's more imbued with his essence than anything else. So that does feel a tad bit odd flavor-wise, but otherwise, this is a funky card. And then we've got Eowyn the Shield Maiden, and she is 5 mana for a legendary 5/4 human knight with first strike. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if another human entered the battlefield under your control this turn, create 2/2/2 red human knight creature tokens with trample and haste. Then if you control 6 or more humans, draw a card. That's nuts. Literally. You just have to put another human out. It doesn't have to be a non-token human. Then you get to make 2 more humans. Like, she's a human, so you already have 4 humans there. And if you have 6, you're getting to draw a card on top of cranking out these tokens. This is a beast. And I do also want to take a moment to touch on the artwork. Obviously, when you look at the artwork, this is not what you would consider the traditional depiction of these characters. Now, why is Wizards of the Coast doing this? Well, I believe it's actually a bad faith effort to intentionally get people riled up online, the same way that in the past, the Ghostbusters movie tried to use kind of bad press to push sales. So I genuinely think that Wizards of the Coast is just trying to manipulate people into getting angry. I've seen this subject coming up here and there, so I thought that I'd toss it in at the end. They're just baiting you. Don't fall for it. Anyways, big shout out to my patrons. Thanks very much for supporting my channel. There's all kinds of ridiculous stories that I have to tell you from my honeymoon. Some good, some hilariously bad. So come on by to the live stream tonight on my other channel. I'll leave a link down in the comments and the description to send you on over. I'm glad to be back and I'm looking forward to hanging out live tonight. I'll see you all there.